Thank you, Madam Speaker. DPM Tharman in his reply mentioned about the different types of audits conducted by the AGOs. I would like to ask the DPM if you can help us better understand the different types of audit that AGO conducts. For example, those that the AGO conducts on the various ministries and the agencies on an annual basis versus those that AGO conducted on the Aljunied Hougang Punggol East Town Council. What are the differences?
First, on the first part of Mr. Lang Henga's question, as I've explained, there are two types of audits. One is an audit on the reliability of your financial statements. Another is a selective audit that AGO does each year on different agencies on quite a wide range of issues, mainly to do with their compliance with the rules and procedures that we have put in place to ensure proper conduct. But it goes beyond that also. It looks at wasteful spending, whether there's value for money in spending, a range of other issues. So the AGO has got the remit to decide on what is relevant in its selective audits, and it has ranged quite widely across our agencies. The fundamental issue, which I highlighted in my answer, is that the AGO has given an unmodified opinion on the government's accounts, financial statements, an unmodified audit opinion on the government's financial statements. That is indeed the fundamental difference between the AGO's opinion on the government compared to the AGO's opinion after its special audit of AHPTC. The problems in AHPTC are fundamentally different. They're fundamentally different. The entire system of accounts is a problem. If I can quote from the AGO report itself, this is what the AGO report said on AHPTC. There can be no assurance that AHPTC's accounts are accurate and reliable, or that public funds are properly spent, accounted for, and managed. This is not just a matter of poor accounting procedures. It arose because there are so many weaknesses and omissions in the AHPTC accounts that its own auditors and the AGO were not able to determine if monies in the accounts have been safeguarded or how they have been used. That is the heart of the matter. It's the entire system of accounts. There's no remotely similar problem in government. As I've mentioned, the AGO has given the government an unmodified audit opinion on its financial statements, both in the latest audit as well as in previous years. And this means that the accounts of all the government departments, the ministries, the departments, and the organs of state are reliable and public funds are properly accounted for. The same is true for the statutory boards, which have their respective auditors. They've all received unmodified audit opinions from their respective auditors in their latest audits. If I can put it simply, the whole house of AHPTC's finances is unsafe if we look at what the AGO findings say. Both AHPTC's own auditor and AGO could not certify the AHPTC house as structurally safe, as structurally sound. Apart from it being unsafe and unsound, there are also many individual defects and problems. By comparison, the government agencies audited by AGO do not have unsafe houses. The house is safe. And there's no question as to whether public monies are fully accounted for. There are some repairs needed to the house in specific areas, but everyone can be confident that the house is safe. And there's also full visibility. The curtains aren't drawn. There's full visibility. This is the fundamental difference.
Mr. Peng Ihwat. He said that the findings in the AGOs are mostly not repeated, right? They are not repeat findings. How did the minister arrive at the conclusion? Because the AGO, when they do audits, they select agencies, and they may not select the same agencies every year, or the stat boards. So, like for example, People's Association, the last time they did an audit was quite some time ago. So how does the minister arrive at the conclusion that most of the findings are not repeat findings, you know?
So I would not be able to say that every fault or lapse found this year has never happened before, because as you say, the AGO, like any external auditor, can only make selective audits and focuses on different transactions each year and different agencies. However, if you ask me for an assessment looking at all the years of AGO reports, and I must say AGO is a very thorough organization, it is clear that lessons are taken in each and every case. There are one or two instances where you literally get a recurrence of the same problem, which we take very seriously, but by and large, lessons are taken. I have to emphasize that there will be no perfection in this matter. From time to time, there'll be human lapses, and despite the rules having been put in place and strengthened after initial audit findings, you'll sometimes get people overlooking the rules. But by and large, if you look at the way government agencies have responded to the AGO reports, actions have been taken, disciplinary actions have been taken as well, and improvements have been made. We do track this. We do track whether there is a recurrence in the same agency of the same type of problem. We do track it. And in this year's report, for instance, there was only one recurrence out of that whole set. We track it. We track every single lapse to see, has this happened before? Were the lessons taken after the last time it happened? And we found only one example of where, in fact, there was a recurrence of the same type of lapse.
Ms. Sylvia Lim.
Thank you, Madam. Three clarifications or supplementary questions for Deputy Prime Minister Tharman. He made some reference in his answer to the audit done by the AGO on the alternate Hougang Punggol East Town Council. And I'd like to ask him some questions on this. First, is he aware that the Town Council has since filed a subsequent audited accounts for FY2013-14 by 30th of June? Secondly, can he confirm if he has read those accounts? Third, the auditors that audited our accounts, which were recently submitted on 30th June, is he not aware that out of the 13 disclaimers that were put into our previous accounts, the auditors have confirmed that only 3 remain unresolved? And last of all, does DPM, is he not also aware that this recent audit that we did for FY2013-14, our auditors actually made the observation that except for certain specific issues, the Town Council has actually complied with the Act in terms of keeping proper accounts and books?
I have been reading the reports regarding the latest accounts. First, of course, it has to be noted that they were submitted very late, several months after they were meant to be submitted to the Ministry of National Development. MND, in fact, issued a reply to queries on the matter, which I have read. The accounts are still qualified with disclaimers of opinion. They are qualified on several counts. First, I should note also that these are new auditors appointed by AHPTC, and they had flagged 8 different areas of concern involving non-compliance with legal and regulatory requirements. 8 areas where there were non-compliance. And these were fairly basic areas. They were not minor areas of infraction. There were still matters to do with related party transactions, quite significant matters. There were lapses with regard to transfer to sinking funds, which is an extremely important matter for all town councils. Failure to transfer monies to sinking funds when due is really putting the House at risk. It's really putting the House at risk. The transfers that HPTC made, according to its own auditor's report, were late. And as you recall from the AGO's previous report, errors were discovered in the computations only after AGO's audit. So there's something seriously wrong there. There were also problems to do with the accounts themselves, problems to do with the opening balances, problems to do with determining the accuracy of the service and conservancy charges that were owed to the town council, problems to do with accounting for creditors and accrued expenses. So it's not something to be whitewashed. When the house is structurally unsafe, one doesn't just go and put a new coat of paint on the front walls. I think it needs a very hard look. The foundations need to be put in place. It's hard work, but you've had a lot of time to do so.
Ms. Sylvia Lim.
Thank you, Madam. DPM still has not actually answered my questions. Whether he accepts that in the FY2013-14 accounts, which our auditors approved, that they have noted that out of the 13 disclaimers from the past, only 3 remain unresolved. So I'd like him to confirm whether he accepts that point. Secondly, does he also accept that some of the areas which our auditors highlighted were actually carried over from the previous accounts, opening balance issues, for example? That's the second point. Third point also, regarding the sinking fund transfers, I think it is public knowledge that the Town Council has still not received its operating SNCC grants for FY14 and FY15. So is DPM not aware of that as well? And last of all, does DPM not accept what I put to him earlier, that the auditor's opinion was that except for the specific observations, we have complied with the Act?
Well, that is like saying that except for the fact that the pillars of my house are in serious danger of collapsing, everything is fine. The examples that I've given of the areas that the auditor has qualified do strike me as a finance minister as being fairly serious examples. They're not minor infractions which you put a coat of paint over. They're very serious examples. So I would really strongly advise not to get in the game of saying that, whether it's 3 or 8 and so on, but to look into the substance of the matter. These are very serious issues: a failure to transfer monies into the sinking funds, being unable to account for your service and conservancy charges after a few years. They're very serious matters to be taken seriously by everyone up and down the line. I'd strongly advise that. Second, on the matter of grants, was that what you asked about? On the matter of grants. Well, here again, I've looked at MND's statement on the matter, which I have in front of you. I'm sorry to have to go through it again, but I'll have to take you through the key issues. First, HPTC had made a rather unusual request that the MND grants, which ought to be split, going by the normal rules and procedures, ought to be split between sinking fund and the operating fund. HPTC made an unusual request for all the monies to go to the sinking fund. And MND, despite the unusualness of this request, said it is prepared to consider this suggestion and merely asked for some information, cash flow information, to ensure that if MND does as requested, the delivery of essential services would not be compromised. That was an entirely reasonable request by MND. They're willing to entertain the suggestion you made, but they would like some information to make sure that the delivery of essential services is not compromised. HPTC has not answered these questions. They're very reasonable questions, legitimate questions, and it has not answered these questions. And this is exactly the same thing as what happened in 2014. It's exactly the same thing. I think you will also know and I don't have my materials in front of me, you'll also know that what is owing from the operating fund to the sinking fund is actually a very substantial sum. Even if you take into account MND's grants, which MND is willing to discuss with you, and you have part of the MND grant that has to properly go into the sinking fund, another part which goes into the operating fund, the amount that is owed to the sinking fund from the operating fund would not be solved by MND grants. There's a more fundamental problem.